22nd, 2024 meeting of the Fitchburg School Committee. I call this meeting to order. There will be no executive session this meeting. And please be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast. If there is anyone in the audience who is recording this meeting, please identify yourself, stating your name and city of residence. Seeing none, now I will ask that all electronic devices be placed into silent mode. Okay. And we will do the salute to the flag. Let's see, we have Ms. Rosemary Reynolds. Would you please lead us in the salute to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next up on our agenda, we have school committee members and student reports. We have no report from the school committee chair at this time. We have the resource subcommittee.
Resource and building needs will be meeting Thursday night.
Meeting Thursday night at, 5 p.m.?
I think resources meeting Thursday.
Just resource
just
this
resource.
Thursday, and then the following week it'll be building needs and resource.
All right, very good. We have the policy subcommittee.
We are meeting Wednesday night from 6 to 8, and we're going to continue with Section B, finishing that up, and get going on Section C.
Awesome, all the good stuff. Thank you for the work there. Okay, we have the student support subcommittee. Or let me just ask if anyone has any questions or comments about any of these dates. All right. Okay, continuing. Dr. Knight?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for this space. Our next meeting is on Wednesday of this week. However, as the chair of the Student Support Subcommittee, I would like to take the time to say that I am very happy to share with you that the trip to the nation's capital was a success, and I am pleased with the outcome of that trip. It was a wonderful accomplishment for our African American students. It was the first time in the history of Fitchburg Public School that this population of students had the opportunity to go outside of Massachusetts. Now, this is important because our students need to get out of Fitchburg more often, and this trip, without a doubt, created a better opportunity for them. Special thanks to Mr. Theo Demosthenes, who was a great organizer and role model for our students. It was wonderful to see the students' excitement when they saw much of the architecture in D.C. It was inspirational to see the smile on their faces when they got the tour of our visit to Howard University, the enthusiasm during our visit to the office of Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, to the United States Capitol and Visiting Center, to Martin Luther King Jr. National Memorial, to Lincoln Memorial, to Washington Monument, and several gift shops. They were all happy teenagers. Additionally, our students were nicely engaged providing feedback, answering and asking questions during the daily debrief led by Mr. Theo. This trip was a gateway to college, inspiring our students to continue their education and broadening their horizon experience. I would like to say thank you also to Miss Courtney Franklin, Miss Kendra, Miss Mary Alexandra Molina, and Mr. Cedric for making themselves available as chaperones. The behavior and participation of our 9 students was excellent, and so I am very proud and would like to wish Rihanna, Madison, Maya, Zoe, Olivia, Musa, Brian, Dylan, and Moses the best of luck in their post-secondary education and life outcome as positive citizens citizen of this great nation. Some of these students mentioned that they want to be dentists, engineers, and nurses, and that is awesome. A shout out also to the parents for allowing them to attend this trip with such memorable experience. Madam Mayor and fellow school committee members, there is a magnet on each of your desk to express my thanks and the opportunity to serve. And I hope that this is the beginning of open doors for future trips outside of the United States for the population of African American of Fitchburg Public School also. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Dr. Knight, and thank you for the great magnet showing
welcome.
our U.S. Capitol to all our school committee members. We appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Dr. Knight?
Did you
Yes,
have
sir.
a chance to do any recruiting for us? At Howard University.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for that synopsis of our Washington, D.C. trip. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have the School Personnel Subcommittee, and we have no report at this time. And my favorite part, we're Student Representatives Report.
Hi. Starting with Goodrich Academy, the Goodrich Academy Student Council will be holding the first annual 3v3 basketball tournament. The tournament will be held May 18th and 19th. It's district-wide, 6 to 12 grades will be playing, boys and girls divisions, $60 per team. This will take place at the Brickyard at Longjoe Middle School. And the Goodrich Student Council is working on setting up a field day / barbecue for seniors. Dates are to be determined. At Fitchburg High, I've said this like every time so far, but the application for the MVP program for next school year is on the Fitchburg High School homepage. The program is a great opportunity for students who will be in 11th or 12th grade next school year and are interested in studying carpentry or electrical at Monty Tech. Auditions for the FHS Talent Show are April 25th and 26th after school. All talents are welcome, and the performance is May 3rd at 6 p.m. The high school spring concert is May 9th at 6 p.m., and the middle school spring concert is May 21st. Graduation announcement. Due to the construction timeline for Crocker Field, they will be unable to hold graduation at Crocker Field this May. They're looking at two options for an outdoor graduation ceremony, Fitchburg State University Wallace Civic Center, or the outdoor field at Fitchburg High School. So seniors, please fill out the survey on the FHS website with your preference. Preschool and kindergarten registration is still open until April 30th. May 2nd is the United Way Youth Venture Showcase from 5 to 7 at Great Wolf Lodge. So come see some amazing changes that young people have made in our communities. RSVP on the FPS website. May 2nd is also the National Junior Honor Society induction at Memorial Middle School. And the Fitchburg Fire Department is holding a Fitchburg Safety Day on May 4th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It'll be teaching kids about fire safety, and parents can pick up safety kits that include things like DNA swabs, teeth imprints, bike helmets, and free vision screenings are also being provided.
Thank you. Any questions, sir? Yes, Dr. Knight.
Yes, I'm just keeping my eyes open. When is the deadline to purchase tickets for the prom?
Oh, I'm actually not sure about that. I'll have to look. Would that be like on the Fitchburg High website or something?
Oh, okay.
Get the information.
We'll get the information.
And, send it over. It's got to be coming up real soon, I'm sure. I'll see if I can find it right now.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much. Moving on in our agenda, we have the approval of the minutes from our previous school committee meeting of April 1st.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the minutes from our regular school committee meeting of April 1st. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Wonderful. Okay, we have communications, none at this time.
Communications?
Oh,
Yes.
we have a communications. Okay.
You want to do it, Ms. Cragen, or? Yeah. You like your,
Oh, gosh. Good evening, friends. I'm Sally Cragen, City Councilor, live on Oak Hill Road. I'm coming back up for public comment, but I did want to make sure that this communication made it out to one and all. And I'll give one to James to bring to the high school. I think we have flyers. The Love Our Pets Festival, the first time we've ever done this in Fitchburg, is going to happen on Saturday, May 4th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Crocker Playground. That is in West Fitchburg, Westminster, and Wachusett Street, rain or shine. Love Our Pets came about from conversations I've had with the mayor and conversations I've had with Ward 3 Councilor Andrew Kuchar, and it's going to be fantabulous. The first 100 guests can exchange the horrible plastic retractable leashes that we're trying to eliminate from everywhere, but you can bring your horrible retractable leash and get a nice new nylon leash. More exciting, microchipping free for the first 50 guests. Microchipping is going to be provided by Leominster Animal Hospital. We're going to have Healing Paws, a pet rehabilitation workshop, so you can learn massage techniques for your dog or cat. At 12:30, we have a dog promenade. Every pup is going to get a prize. We are also having tables with Fitchburg Public Schools, with Fitchburg Public Library, with New View, and with Therapy Pets and Street Cat Angels, who do a fantastic job of rescue in Fitchburg. Make and take dog and cat toys, Therapy Pets, also artist crafts, vendors, and food trucks we're working on. So this is Saturday, May 4th, Crocker Playground, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Please come on down. We'd love to see you. And same day, as James pointed out, as the fire department. Of course, we work very closely with them because the Catmobile will be coming again in May, and we just had our low-cost Jeffrey P. Stevens pet vaccine clinic. And we broke our record by having 44 cats get vaccinated. And we saw so many Fitchburg Public School kids at the vaccine clinic. I really feel like what we're doing here in Fitchburg is working in terms of the education and so forth. Anyway, thank you for letting me share, Mr. Stevens. Always a pleasure to be back at school committee.
Thank you. Any other communications?
Deadline for prom tickets is May 1st.
May 1st.
Could I purchase one from you?
No, they sell them at the school, but we can get that information specifically for you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. We have public comment next on our agenda. Public comments of no more than 5 minutes in length were offered to be submitted to the superintendent via email by noon today. Did we get any comments?
No, we did not.
Okay. I now invite
Hold on.
I now invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to please approach the podium, identify yourself by name and city of residence, and you are free to make a public comment of no more than 5 minutes in length.
Thank you. Sorry, I know. Anyhow, I'm here because I just
Excuse
learned...
me, could you please state your name
I'm
and
sorry,
city residence?
my name is
Thank you.
Jean Robbie. I live in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. Yay. I'm here because I recently discovered that the only people getting yearbooks is seniors, and the kids are calling it senior privilege. The only ones in the yearbook are seniors. There are nobody else in there, no other classmen. I think that's wrong. You're robbing these children of memories. They've already been robbed of enough memories through the school system, all through COVID. Even the junior high, you can't get yearbooks. I think that's wrong. I know you all have yearbooks from junior high and high school, just like I do, and every once in a while I break them out. I show them to my grandkids. We get a good laugh. Why are our kids being excluded, except for seniors? It doesn't cost us anything. The cost is put on the parents. You decide how many pages you want, what the cover is going to look like. You put that cost out to the parents first and say, hey, this is the first cost. Get them now. A couple months later, you put it out again. Also include in it, hey, you know what? There's a pay it forward if you'd like to buy one for a kid who can't afford it. But all the cost is put on the parents. We also have a graphic arts program who can help put this book together. And why don't we have a photography program? to help take pictures. I am more than willing to come down and go through and start taking pictures. It's not too late to get this yearbook updated and put together. So I volunteer if you'd like. I think it's wrong, these kids. My grandson is highly disappointed. This is twice he's expected it. His first year in junior high and his first year in high school, and he doesn't get a yearbook still. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robbie. Do we have anyone else that wishes to speak? Please state your name and city of residence.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Migdalia Velez, and I am a resident of Fitchburg. And today I'm here in capacity as a parent and a resident, just to bring to the attention of Goodrich Academy School. Both of my daughters graduated from Goodrich Academy in a very successful program. I'm very grateful for the district having a school like Goodrich, and a concern about Miss Alexis Curry. We've not heard anything, any updates about it. It's been months and months. So I think the community in general needs to know what is going to occur. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any further public comments? Yes? I'm sorry, we are accepting public comments, but we can't, that's just not the, it's not the way it's structured.
Brianna Vega, I live in Fitchburg.
Thank you.
I'm also just touching on the Alexis Curry topic. As a student of the 2016 class, we haven't heard or seen anything happening. We've rallied, we've set our voice, we have Facebook pages, and the community really does stand behind Alexis, and we would love to see some steps coming, graduation's coming, and I believe that she deserves to stand up there with all the students, that she's helped lead. And in prior years, my older sister's a graduate of the 2013 class. I'm a graduate of the 2016 class. I still know a lot of the kids still in the school. I think that we really need to make a move on that. Ms. Curry deserves this job. She's given her all to this community and these kids, including myself, so I think that she really deserves that, the community standing behind her, and Fitchburg as well.
Thank you. Just to make a clarifying statement, the school committee does not have the authority to address matters related to personnel that we do not appoint, such as school principals. Thank you. Do we have any further public comment?
Good evening. My name is Mary Alexandra Molina. I am a proud Fitchburg Public School employee. All of you know me in some capacity, but tonight I am not here representing the superintendent's office, but rather as a Black Fitchburg Public School employee who felt a strong need to come forward. I want to start off by thanking Dr. Knight for her willingness to take a week off from her busy schedule and to make the time to come on this Washington, D.C. trip with the Black Student Union. This was an opportunity for her to get to know some of our amazing students in the district and share in their experiences, both in our schools and in this trip of cultural enrichment and immersion. I also want to thank Mr. D for his hard work in planning such a wonderful trip for our students. It was extremely impactful, and I know that we look forward to providing more students with these types of opportunities. I was honored to chaperone our BSU students on the trip to Washington, D.C. last week. The 9 students who attended the trip are absolutely brilliant, and I can say with certainty that they all have a bright future ahead of them. I am eager to hear and see what adventures await them in the near future. On the trip, students and parents shared their thoughts about our previous school committee meeting. Although all of them were not physically present, the meeting was watched on FATV by most, and the impact felt by all. Their sentiments and concerns regarding the comments made during Mr. D's presentation were poignant and did not fall on deaf ears. Based on those conversations, I felt compelled to come forward and share a message from the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which we visited. A passage that a student pointed out to me in response to the comments made, "How do you define Black?" What does it mean to be Black in America today? How does racial identification intersect with other forms of belonging? Does race still matter? African Americans are leading and shaping global conversations that will define this century. With the census finding each generation of Americans more multicultural than the last, and immigration bringing greater ethnic diversity to Black populations in the United States, notions of identity and community will continue to change. As the experience of being Black in America evolves, so will the ways in which a more diverse Black America influence global history and culture. If the problem of the 20th century was, in W.E.B. Du Bois' famous words, the problem of the color line, then the problem of the 21st century is a problem of color blindness, the refusal to acknowledge the causes and consequences of enduring racial stratification. Madam Mayor and Chair of this committee, there are several trainings in cultural competency that may be of some benefit to our school committee members. Trainings that would allow for the members to have a deeper understanding of the students and families this committee supports and represents. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay, thank you very much.
Wait a minute.
Good evening again. Sally Cragen, Oak Hill Road, Fitchburg. I wanted to invite you to the Janet Cragen Youth Arts Awards on Tuesday, May 28th. So we are selecting our middle school students right now. There will be 18 Fitchburg students, 6 from Sizer, 6 from Memorial, and 6 from Longsyo. That's 6 p.m. Tuesday, May 28th at the Senior Center. I also wanted to speak about the journey to Washington, D.C. I, too, watched that school committee meeting, and I, too, was disturbed by some of the comments that I did hear, but I was very much reassured by what Mr. Thompson said, what Mr. Roche said, what Ms. Cologne said, and what Mr. Stevens said, and what Mr. Walsh said, and what Dr. Knight said. And again, I have to say that we have got to represent every child. I was on the school committee for 14 years and loved every minute of it, and representing who our students are is key. So thank you for putting the pictures of the amazing trip, and I hope it's the first of a sequence, and I'm glad you were able to attend. Well done.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further public comment?
Hi, my name is Sean Barger. I'm a resident of Fitchburg. I'm just going to bring up the topic real quick about Alexis. I know you said the school committee says it has know nothing about nothing. Mr. Thompson, you do. You know what's going on. You have everything done and handed to you already. Okay, there's a lot going on. As you know, I told you in an email, my daughter will not step foot back in that school because of her anxiety for all the stuff that's going on in that school. And from my understanding, and from a lot of kids that are there too, nothing's been done. Nothing has been done. Okay, there's a lot going on in that school, and you need to pay more attention to what's going on in that school. I'm not saying you're not doing your stuff behind scenes, but Sam, I respect your job. Sir, I respect your job too. Anybody up here, I respect all you guys' jobs. But again, my daughter's 16 years old. Severe anxiety now since this whole thing with Alexis has happened. She cannot come in here today because she's in the car crying. Okay, something needs to be done. She needs to get back in her desk and get that school back in order, because right now it's running like trash. I'm sorry to say, but you got to do a better job at your job. Something's got to be done. I have nothing but respect. I've emailed you numerous times. You have not emailed me back. I had to go to Kushmerik to get to you, and that shouldn't have happened. Direct contact with a parent that goes to for kids that go to that school. Come on, sir. More communication. Communication is key, and communication solves things. It's a real simple thing to do. I came here today because you have ignored my emails until today, and you have no answer for me. No answer for these kids that are suffering every day at that school. Now they don't know where the hell they're going to graduate. Where at? You know, the whole school is this, it's not right now. Alexis needs to be back at her desk. That lady there is the glue to that school. She is Goodrich Academy. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make a public comment?
Yes, I would, if I can get to the bench. I'll do my best.
You could, you
Come
could,
to the table.
you could wheel right to the table if you'd like.
Thank you very much. Let me get my feet up. These guys would love to see me go down, but I'm not.
That's right, Mr. P. You remember me?
I do.
I was one of the students.
Yes, good to
Good
see
to see you.
You spoke very well, Steve.
Thank you. I learned from a very good principal. You know that? You were one of my principals. That's what matters.
Thank you. Yep, that's good.
Thank you.
You've done quite a job. You're off to a great start. Make sure tonight that you don't mix up
Mike?
my comments.
Mike?
My name is Mike Pellin. I live in Clegon. Thank you. We good to go?
Yep.
Mrs. Reynolds, can you hear me? Dr. Knight, congratulations. They're not going to say it, but I will. You opened up the door for some kids they can use for a lifetime, unlike here. You told Dr. Braga that I was talking about him. All my comments were directed at you, and they'll continue to be directed at you. You don't have a clue whether it's daylight or Detroit. You really don't. You are lost. You have ruined these kids. You have ruined that school. I want to talk to the kids for a second so they can hear this. 25 years ago, necessity was the mother of invention, alternative education. 67 students at Memorial, a program that has now grown, or until you ruined it, has now grown to about 240. Don't look like you don't know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You know what you've done. Have some guts and look me in the eye. Put your head down. You should have your head down. We moved the school to Goodrich, and we were able to help kids from 37 communities besides Fitchburg. Kids to fulfill their dreams, to get a high school diploma and go on to college. We went into homes and we got kids out that needed a few credits because they felt good about being at B.F. Brown, they felt good about being at Memorial, and they wanted to go on and do high school where they felt best. That was Goodrich Academy. That was a place where students' needs were met. That's a place where teachers met the kids out in front of the school, in the sidewalks, talking about their new cars, talking about their golf game, talking about football, Mr. McNamara, Mr. Livingston helping them with their cars. Kids couldn't wait to show them what they had. School was fun to go to again. It's not fun now. It's all been taken away. You don't even have the courage and the guts to admit when you're wrong. I read what you put in the paper. Well, you know, I think that, I might let it go. I might not have any problems at all. By the way, just in case I'm getting followed, look what I brought tonight, people. This is special for all of you. I didn't know if the private eye was going to come after me. So I brought just in case he was around. $300 a day, an hour. $300 an hour, $105 to travel here from Western Mass. And that's what we're getting back? What are we giving to the kids? Where are they in all this? They've been thrown out and left behind. And they're the kids that need it the most. I said it when I was here last, and I'll say it every time I come here. They need it the most. They'll never take that school away. We've got too many people and we're too strong. You got a wheel of fortune going on downstairs in the school. I don't know if the mayor shared this with you. This is special. This is a $200 check made out directly to the secretary. I look puzzled like you. We both look puzzled. And you know what this is? This is theft. The chairperson has it. I gave her a copy. And we've taken it one more step in the Wheel of Fortune. Now we have kids paying cash for their caps and gowns. And you can't get a receipt? Are you aware of that, Mr. Roach? Do you know what this is, Mr. Roach? Have you seen this before? Well, let me help you guys out. Let me help you out. When a student takes a course part-time so they can graduate at their home school, it costs $200. And the amount is payable to the Fitchburg School Department. Not this one. It's payable to Debbie Johns, the secretary in the school. Online course. 9 of them times 200 is $1,800. Where did that money go? You're all looking at me like you saw like cigar store Indians or something. What is he talking about? He knows what I'm talking about. He knows what I'm talking about.
Mr. Pellin, I'm sorry, your time has expired. If you could wrap it up.
It usually does. Well, you know what? This is going to become a police issue. So handle it as you may. Really smart. You know something there? I thought you had it to make some changes, but you're like the rest of them. Sit on your hands and watch the world go by. It'll all go away. God bless those kids at Goodrich.
I agree 100%.
Thank you. And I'll be back. You don't clean this, I'll be back. And I won't be alone. Thank you, sir.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Congratulations again, Dr. Knight.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make a public comment at this time? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on the agenda. We have the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, we have our science director, Jessica Sadowski, joining us to give us an update on the happenings in our science department. Welcome, Jess.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this evening. Mr. Thompson, you have my presentation, correct?
Yep, I'll pull it up right now.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So for those who I have not had the pleasure of meeting or working directly with yet, I am Jessica Studulski, the Director of Science Curriculum here in Fitchburg Public Schools. I've worked here for the last 15 or 16 years, actually. So I have been primarily a middle school science teacher, and for the past 3 years, I've been working as the Director of Science Curriculum. So I wanted to start by talking a little bit about the standards that our curriculum is based on. So you may have heard of NGSS. That's the Next Generation Science Standards. Those are the standards that were developed by a series of stakeholders, including industry professionals and educators from early elementary up through post-secondary, and also with the industry professional piece. So those have informed our Massachusetts frameworks as well, and our Massachusetts frameworks were developed in much the same way as the NGSS. So a lot of science curriculum has that NGSS stamp on it, so it's important to know that there is an overlap between NGSS and Massachusetts, but Massachusetts, being a leader in education, tends to like to put their own branding on things and have their own variation of them, so that's where we're at with our science standards. So the 3 dimensions of the standards that Massachusetts prioritizes are the disciplinary core ideas and the science and engineering practices, and they ground all of that in the application piece. A little dive into the science and engineering practices. This is really the work that scientists and engineers do, and this is what's so important in the standards. So scientists are asking questions, they're developing and using models, planning and carrying out investigations, analyzing and interpreting data, using math and computational thinking, constructing explanations and designing solutions, engaging in argument from evidence, and obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information. The strands are basically where the disciplinary core ideas are grounded in. So we have 4 strands in our standards. They're the earth and space science, the physical science, life sciences, and technology and engineering. So these are where your DCIs are grounded. So all of this really results in some shifts that we see in classrooms. The real shifts are that in the development of all this work, we started to understand we want students thinking and acting more like scientists. So in order to do that, we really focus more on students explaining, backing their explanations with evidence. They are the ones that are designing their own investigations. So rather than following all the steps in sort of a cookbook type of experiment or lab, students are now the ones that are coming up with their own problems, their own questions, and then thinking their way through how can we actually get some results for this? How can we do some tests? What are the types of things that we can investigate in our classes so that we can figure out the answers to some of our questions? So we see a lot less of read the text and answer questions at the end of the text, and more of, hey, we're going to look at different sources of information, different types of texts, some graphics, some models, and we're going to put that information together to construct our own explanations. So we're no longer training our students to be the next Jeopardy champions. We don't need them memorizing a bunch of factoids. It's great. We have students that will probably become Jeopardy champions one day, but that's not the work that we're really doing in science. We need our students to really be able to think, to investigate, to collaborate, and to engage in the work of scientists if they're going to solve the problems of tomorrow. So that's the real shifts that we're seeing in science classes. Teachers are now stepping aside, and they are more the facilitators of the learning. So they're doing a lot of listening as the students are sharing their models and their explanations, and the teachers are really honing in on what are the students saying? What are they writing? How does that help inform their explanation of things that are happening in the natural world around them? So the instructional resources that we use, mainly we use Mystery Science in K-5, and in middle school up through high school, we're using OpenSciEd for our curriculum resources. So at the elementary school, this is an example of what teachers use from Mystery Science, and we've really worked hard to create vertical alignment in our department. So the OpenSciEd piece that we use in middle school is considered high quality instructional materials. And so we work to build that vertical alignment between our elementary and our middle school by really focusing on key elements of the curriculum. So you can see here on the top left, we have what's called anchoring phenomena. That's a shared experience that I'll dive into a little bit more in the middle school piece, but it's just something that all students have in common, and they can engage in this work to generate their questions that they develop their investigations for. You'll notice in this one, this is an example from kindergarten, so we do have the read-along lessons as part of our Mystery Science in kindergarten and first grade, so it really ties in that literacy component as well. And then at the very bottom there, you can see a little glimpse of the performance task piece. So we'll talk a little bit about the assessment piece a little bit later on. Here's a third grade example. So this unit is Circle of Life. In third grade, students are looking at changes in environments, heredity. You can see the different titles across the top there. So they're looking at heredity and survival, weather and climate, forces in motion. And again, you see that same through line. We start with the anchoring phenomena, that shared experience for everyone. They do a series of investigations with questions that are connected to them, and then they end it with a performance task. This is a supplementary resource that we are using. So this is Gizmos. They're simulations. And so basically what this does is it allows students to manipulate variables and test variables. So in this case, we're looking at the energy flow through a food chain. And students have chosen to change the rabbit population and think about what would happen in this ecosystem if the rabbit population were diseased. And so by running this simulation, they can gather some data and make some predictions and use some evidence that they gather in their investigation in the simulation to figure out how is that going to affect the snake population, how will that affect the hawk population, and so on. So this resource is being used in grades 3 through 8 right now. So at middle school and high school, a lot of our curriculum work has really focused on Open SciEd, and a lot of this has been grant funded. We've received over $57,000 in funding for our middle school Open SciEd implementation, and we've also received additional funding from DESE for our high school field testing. So middle school, we did a 3-year implementation, so teachers got trained and launched. They learned what Open SciEd was really all about, what the routines were, and they learned their first unit. That happened over the summer in the first year. And then in the winter, they went to receive their next unit training. So each year we rolled out 2 additional units. This is our first year that we're now at all 6 units in a full year of Open SciEd in grades 6 through 8. High school looked a little bit different. So we were given the opportunity by DESE to participate in the field testing of Open SciEd. So again, working on that vertical alignment piece. And so in part of the field testing, you're getting units that are developed, but you're also, as a teacher, providing feedback on how those units can be improved, how they can be made better for the students that we are working with. And so teachers did a lot of collecting work, submitting those work samples to the folks that are working in the field test, and then that leads to the revisions. So rather than the 3-year rollout, our teachers at high school for biology started off with 3 units in year 1, 2 units in year 2. And because of the way chemistry was being a little bit more slowly developed, the chemistry teachers got 2 units of Open SciEd in year 1 and 3 units in year 2. So we're now in a year where we're teaching all 5 of the units, and the units are now being released as they've been revised. So they're taking the feedback of all the teachers, including our Fitchburg teachers, and they're revising those units and releasing them nationwide. So this is what Open SciEd looks like. The anchoring phenomena routine is that shared experience. So if we're thinking about some of our middle school units, students might be investigating a bath bomb bubbling and starting to disappear when it is in contact with water. Another example of an anchoring phenomena is a video about a one-way mirror. So you may have all been around a one-way mirror before where you can see some things through it, some things you can't. You see more of a reflection. It's really puzzling. You never really stop to think about these types of things, but you can even see when walking by the windows here in downtown Fitchburg. You sometimes see your reflection, but sometimes you're seeing into the local cafe and see what's going on in there. So these puzzling phenomena lead to lots of questions. That's where students will develop the driving question board. So driving question boards are loaded with student questions, and that becomes the place where they develop their investigations from. Again, through field testing, we learn what are the questions that students are going to ask, because there have been hundreds and thousands of students who have been involved in this work, so we are able to predict what are the types of questions that they're going to ask. As we go through the storyline, it's coherent. All the pieces are really connected together to one another so that students can really see, how does this investigation tie back to our questions? How does it lead us to more questions? We learn some information, but there are still some things that we need to know. Mr. Thompson, you're so good at navigating these things. Thank you.
I'm reading the room.
So some artifacts from our own Fitchburg schools. This is a driving question board, and you can see beneath it lies an example of a model. So here, students are looking at the question, how do plants get their food? Where are those food molecules coming from? So underneath, you can see little bits of the outline of a plant, maybe some roots and a stem there. You also see a section over to the left that shows inputs, and a section to the right that's a little bit covered by the sticky dots, but that says output. So across this whole driving question board are your student questions. Notice the ones at the bottom with all the sticky dots on them. Those indicate where students have done an investigation or they have some evidence that they've answered that question. So this is probably very early on in the unit where we have a few of those questions that have the sticky dots on them. So students are seeing we actually have some answers to the questions from the work that we've done so far in class. Next slide. This is a different example of a driving question board from one of our classrooms. And so in this one, students are looking at floods and droughts, and we see the driving question board is really categorized by, is it about rain? Is it about water levels? Can we stop this from happening? Is the moon somehow connected to this? So you really start to get the sense of what kids are thinking when you see these driving question boards. One of the things that is really strong about Open SciEd and really supports our multilingual students is the fact that we really tie in students' assets. We really look for what are the things that students bring to the table, what are their own experiences that connect to this work that they're doing in class. So if we're thinking about that example of a bath bomb dissolving, when we look at related phenomena, these are all student-generated things that they think about. Where else have I seen something dissolving? Wait. I maybe have had Pop Rocks candy, or I've seen water that's boiling. Is that something that's dissolving? Maybe I've been allowed to do the Coke and Mentos experiment, only under supervision, of course, but they're really kind of thinking about where have I maybe seen this before, and that's important. Also, the ideas for investigation. Again, in this one, students are thinking about, can we figure out what these bath bombs are made of? What would happen if we put bath bombs in cold water, in hot water? And so that becomes the thing that drives their investigations. I also wanted to share this artifact because it really shows how students' ideas change over time. This is an initial consensus model, so this is something a class has agreed on, and it's from very early on in the unit. If you look closely, they have some ideas that something's happening here with particles. They have some ideas that, the bath bomb is there, but then all of a sudden it seems like it's mixed in with the water, something's happening. But it actually says in the top left, we're not sure how many ingredients there are in the bath bomb. That's one of the questions that they have. Now this example, from a different unit obviously, because we're talking about plants and animals, and we can see some sunlight and carbon dioxide and water. So clearly here we're no longer talking about bath bombs, we're talking about something different. So this one is being shown because it really shows the evolution and the revision of student ideas. If we look at this consensus model, this is from further into a unit on photosynthesis, and it really shows not just how things are being represented, it shows evidence of some processes that are happening here. You see things going into and out of these different components of the model. And you also see that there are things happening, as represented by the wavy lines in pink that show that there's chemical reaction occurring. All right, so assessment. It's a big part of our curriculum. I want you to stop for a second and think, what comes to mind when you think about assessment?
Check for
Testing? Testing, checks for understanding. Thank you. Anything else?
Are the students engaged, involved?
Are they engaged or involved? Yeah. So let's take a look at some examples of assessment from Open SciEd. So unlike the previous artifacts, these are not Fitchburg Public Schools artifacts, but they are artifacts that really highlight what assessment looks like in Open SciEd. I'll point out that this one is an initial model. So you see that students' explanations are backed with some pictures. They're using labeling. Again, this supports students who may struggle to express themselves in written words or in spoken words. It gives them multiple ways to be able to highlight and show what they know. This is an example of a progress tracker. So again, it's still early on, but you can see here that students are pondering, where is the gas in the bath bombs lesson coming from? And they have some evidence there so far to support with their explanation. This is an example of a self-assessment. And so here students are really thinking about, how have I contributed to discussion? Have I had the opportunity to share some of my own ideas? Have I given others some support and encouraged them to share their ideas? So students are thinking about how they contribute to the overall sense-making and understanding that's happening in their classroom. This one is an exit ticket, and as you can see, it's from deep into a unit in lesson 12 from our collisions unit. And so in this one, we see a much deeper explanation, again supported with some pictures and labeling. And I think this is our last one. So this is what we would call a CER, a claim, evidence, and reasoning. So students are making a claim. They're thinking about the gas that's being produced by the bath bomb. They're supporting that claim with evidence. And there's actually even a hint there to think about what's on the anchor chart to remind you of what's important to include. So again, it's a different look at assessment. I think a lot of times when we think of assessment, you might think of books are closed, tables are cleared off, we're not using any other resources, anything else hanging up might be covered, and that's true in some cases, but it looks different now as well. And so our assessment is an opportunity for students to sometimes collaborate and to use other resources that are around them to think about, where do they already have some evidence? Question?
Yep. How about performance assessment? This is so important, especially to start off the students from early, because they're going to have to do presentations when they, get to high school and go to college.
Yeah, absolutely. So the assessments are really three-dimensional. And so it really takes different elements and combines them together. And so yes, there's a performance assessment component to this whole system. Let's go to the next slide, and I think we'll answer some more of the questions there. So really what OpenSciEd has done is connected the assessment to the model of learning. In this model of learning, we have prioritized students revising their thinking. Think about that initial model and the consensus model. So they looked very different from one another. The consensus model at the end of the unit has much more detail to it, has much more explanation to it. So the assessment needs to align with that and honor that revision of thinking that needs to happen and building ideas over time. We're also seeing the connection, so putting all of these pieces together. Think about the gizmo simulation with the snakes and the rabbits that we showed earlier in the presentation. Think about the different assessment types that you've seen now from OpenSciEd. And so we are now seeing changes in what MCAS looks like. So for 5th and 8th grade, those are the two grades when students are taking a science MCAS. And we now have an innovative science assessment that we have been part of the piloting and the field testing for. And we are now seeing some changes in that look a lot more like those gizmos. One of the things that I heard last year when working in a classroom with students as they were getting ready for their science MCAS, it was a group of 5th graders, and we went through a gizmo, and then we looked at one of the innovative sample tasks. And the student said, "Miss, this is just like the gizmos that we use all the time." So they are now seeing that when they take this innovative science assessment, that it really feels comfortable to them. It looks a lot more like a simulation where they test some variables, they make some changes, and then they use the evidence that they get in their charts, in their graphs, in their data tables to support their answers and their explanations. So this is a look at the plan for what science assessment will look like from DESE on the MCAS. So we were part of this early on, very intentionally, so we would know what this would look like. We have intentionally positioned our resources by purchasing the gizmos and allowing our students to experience that from 3rd grade through 8th grade to support them with this shift, because they now, what the MCAS looks like for them is the first session that they take is your, I guess, typical session, and then the second session is the innovative items. So that will continue on this year with the pilot being expanded. Next year, they anticipate a statewide field test to be happening, so everyone will be participating. And then they believe that the following year is when DESE plans to make this operational, so student scores would then, for 5th grade and 8th grade, count on those innovative items. They're still kind of testing things out right now. So just in closing my piece on the science curriculum, as we near the end of the presentation, hearing what students have to say. Students saying, as 6th graders, working with others gives me new ideas. We help the teacher make a model. It really shows you who's in the driver's seat. The teacher is really stepping aside and being more the facilitator of the learning, while the students are the ones that are doing a lot of the sharing and the explaining. I think it's also important to note here the support for our multilingual students and our students on IEPs. When a teacher says that, the way it's written really supports students and it gives them a level playing field going in, that really all comes from that coherent storyline that we saw and that shared experience of the anchoring phenomena and their voice being the ones that leads the investigations. So we'll end with some highlights from the science department from this year. In addition to the ones that are pictured here, it's been really important for this work to move forward that we have our instructional coaches. So new for this year was the K-8 instructional coach and the high school instructional coach. The work that we do in Open SciEd and the shifts that need to be made for the teacher to not be what we call the sage on the stage and to step aside and be more of the listener and the facilitator of the work as the students are the ones that are positioned to make sense of things requires a lot of support. And the support of the coaches has been really important to get into the classrooms and be able to model things with teachers, to be able to provide direct feedback, and do all of those types of things that really help us to make these important shifts in the work that we're trying to do. So that's it for my presentation on the science curriculum for now. Do you have any other questions for me?
Questions for Jess?
Thank you.
Did Karen St. Germain come back this?
She did. That one's from the fall. So Karen was here at Fitchburg High. She is a Fitchburg High School graduate. And what's that?
Class of 85.
85. Thank you. Yeah. So it was really exciting to hear from her and have her offer to come back. I know that Tara Sweeney was here in December and sharing, some of the work that she had done out in the field as well. So she's another great ambassador for Fitchburg Public Schools and for science. And we love having them back whenever they're available to come in and share that with our students.
Great to have our students come back.
It is, and to see them so successful.
Yes.
So do you know how many of the students were working on the project in Fitchburg with the DPW in Weston and Sampson?
This was relatively small. We had about 16 students who are mainly environmental sciences students at Fitchburg High School. And so they had this opportunity to go out into the field with folks from the DPW in Weston and Sampson. If you saw any of our Facebook posts or our social media, you saw a little bit more of the highlights of that. But the DPW was amazing. They brought out one of their water trucks, and they used one of their environmentally safe dyes to pump water into one of the nature-based solutions up behind Burbank Hospital. And students were able to really take a good look at that and do some testing. So they measured the water levels, they looked at the organisms that were in that nature-based solution area, and then they went to see a site of a future piece. So this is really important. And I think it's really fitting that we're having this conversation today as I'm presenting in front of you, which happens to be Earth Day. So, tying that piece into it, it was just so awesome to see students get out into the field and, to partner with the DPW. That's been something that we've been doing for the past several years. We've had a lot of great experiences working with them, and it's so important for our high school students to really get these, industry type opportunities so they can get a taste of, what is it like beyond high school? What is it like beyond college or in a career that really is centered around the sciences?
Do you
Dr. Knight?
Yes, thank you so much, Jessica, for the presentation and what you're doing for the students of Fitchburg Public Schools.
Yeah.
I know you said how important it is for what was it you said? You said that it was important for. Anyways, I'll get back to that. But are you in the science classes at any one of the schools or all the schools? Are they using those 6 models of co-teaching in the science classes like they do in the English language arts and the mathematics classes?
Yeah, so there's a lot of overlap. I think when Mrs. Chandler presented the math curriculum as one of the first curriculum presentations, she had that Venn diagram that shows, here are the pieces that really overlap all of our content areas. And a lot of it really has to do with that, explaining and arguing from evidence, that student discourse piece. So those are all key pieces of the work that we do. And we're so fortunate that we do have content directors because it gives us that opportunity to think about it from a couple of lenses. We're able to look at where are the connections and the overlaps between our content areas for students, most importantly, because particularly when you talk middle school and high school, students are going from classroom to classroom to classroom. They need to see some consistency and some routines and be able to use that as the way to leverage and unlock new information, as opposed to every place I go, there's something different, and now it's really hard for me to think about the new learning and the new information I need to figure out. So, having us look at it from the student lens and then looking at it from the teacher lens as well. Where are some places where as teachers we can leverage some professional learning opportunities that we've had and say, hey, this really does apply to all of us. This is common language that we can have that will benefit our students.
And yes, and you are right about the importance of the classes being student-centered. That's the philosophy of Dewey and Childs and Kilpatrick, that the classes are student-centered, giving the students the opportunity to be able to do all the investigation, use the scientific method, and then the teachers step back and observe and, act as coaches. So that's good. So anyways, I'm very grateful for what you're doing and, keep up the good work,
Thank you.
It's going to start, showing all the positive outcomes, as time goes on.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jess?
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, moving on with my report. The next item is the second reading of the 24-25 school year calendar. So that is in your packet. I'll quickly run through the dates one more time, and we are asking this evening for a vote on next year's school calendar. So starting at the top, August 20th to the 21st is the new teacher orientation. August 27th to 29th is the teacher and paraprofessional development. September 2nd is Labor Day, no school. September 3rd is teacher and paraprofessional development. September 4th, classes will begin grades 1 through 12. September 9th, classes will begin for students in grades pre-K and K. October 9th is a staff professional development day. It's an early release. October 14th is Indigenous Peoples Day, no school. November 5th is Teacher and Paraprofessional Development Day, no school. November 11th is Veterans Day, no school. November 27th is an early release for Thanksgiving recess, and there will be no school on November 28th and 29th for Thanksgiving recess. December 5th is Parent Guardian Teacher Conferences, pre-K to 12. It's an early release day. December 23rd to January 1st is no school because of December vacation. January 2nd, school reopens from December vacation. January 20th is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, no school. January 29th, staff professional development. It's an early release day. February 6th is parent guardian teacher conferences, pre-K to 12. It's an early release day. February 17th to 21st is no school for winter vacation. March 21st is a teacher professional development day, no school. April 21st to the 25th, no school for spring vacation. May 26th, there will be no school for Memorial Day. January 5th will be Goodrich Academy graduation.
January?
I'm sorry, I said that again. June 5th, Goodrich Academy graduation. June 6th is Fitchburg High School graduation. June 19th is Juneteenth. There will be no school. And the last day of school for next year will be on June 20th. And then make up because of our 5-day that they allow us for winter vacation. Snow days is from June 23rd to 27th. And like I said before, we are currently in contract negotiations. We may be adding an additional 2 days for early releases moving forward. Okay? But for tonight, we would like a vote on next year's calendar. Any questions?
Will that, we get 2 more days, we'll be okay with the number of hours?
Yes. Yep. Any questions? All right. Next piece I would like to discuss this evening is the Special Education Department. As you all know, earlier this year, Roanne DeManch, our Director of Pupil Services, has resigned. She'll be moving on to a different school district. Moving forward, instead of hiring or posting for another Director of Pupil Services, I would like to post for an Assistant Director of Special Education. The Assistant Director of Special Education will be responsible for assisting the Director of Special Education, which is Alicia Barosby, with leading the department around special education compliance and teaching and learning for special education students. In addition, our directors, we currently have 3 directors, one for nursing and health services, which is Pam Rivers, our Director of SEL, which is Brendan Keenan, and our Director of Early Childhood, who is Laura Douglas. They'll be the leads of their department. That work used to fall under the Director of Pupil Services, which was Roanne DeManch. But now we have actually directors for those areas, so they'll be actually taking on the responsibility for that work, which they should be because they'll be leading the department. That being said, we hope that these changes will help the department run more effectively and will be a cost savings for the district moving forward. The one thing I would like to say is that we are going to be posting for 1, but depending on how the year goes, I may come back and ask for a second Assistant Director of Special Education. One of the things that we're seeing is a lot more additional work around compliance, around IEPs, and responding to that compliance is taking up a lot of time. So right now, we're going to move forward with trying for an Assistant Director of Special Education, just 1, but I may come back later on next year asking for an additional Assistant Director. But right now, we'd like to try that with 1. Okay? Yes?
We have about 25%.
25% of our students are designated as special education, yes. Okay?
Do all of our 25% special education designated students have an IEP?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That doesn't count all the kids that go to the collaboratives. and
Correct. Yep.
That are placed out of district, so.
That's only in district,
In
the
district.
25%.
Yep. And roughly, the state average, last time I checked, was around 20.4%, so we're above the state average. Okay.
Might that number also increase?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. But we don't know who will be moving into the district, Rosemary, that may already have an IEP. So that may increase. In addition to, we have new students that get picked up periodically for special education. So that may happen any point during the year.
That's your foreseeing that it's likely that we may need a second?
Yes, correct. Yep.
So last month, we had like 16 new students come in probably could get the same this coming month.
But we'll be doing that. I'll be posting that hopefully later this week, if not next week. Okay? And I'll keep you updated. As you heard this evening, the next piece we're talking about is the Crocker Field update. Our student rep, James, came this evening and talked about the news with us not having graduation at Crocker Field. Surprise, the cat's out of the bag, unfortunately. We found out recently that they need to start construction no later than May 15th, or the project will not be done in time for the fall. So that being said, construction will start on May 15th. We will not be able to have graduation there. So today, a survey went out to all the seniors at Goodrich, in addition to the seniors at Fitchburg High School, asking them to select two options for graduation. The first option is to have graduation at Wallace Civic Center. Everyone knows where the Civic Center is, correct? Mr. Roach reached out to them and asked them if that would be an opportunity for us to have it there, and they did say yes. So it will be available for both Goodrich and Fitchburg High graduation. So that's option one. Option two is to have it at Fitchburg High School in the soccer/softball fields across from the school. We would have it there outside. However, if it is scheduled to be rain that day, if their forecast does say rain, we would then have to move that inside to have it at the field house. Okay? So that survey is out right now till Friday for students, and we hope to know by next week and make a decision on where we'll be going for graduation. We're very, very sorry that we're not able to have it at Crocker Field. So, yes.
What is the cost for it to be at the Civic Center?
We haven't gotten that far with them yet, so I don't know. It is available for both dates, so May 30th for Goodrich and May 31st for Fitchburg High School. What I can say is they're more than willing and eager. We had looked at some other options as well, and just weren't available. For the volume of people that would be, the facility would need to host, it just was not possible. So we'll find out. As I said, as Mr. Thompson said, Dr. Rintoul, the senior VP at Fitchburg High School, Dr. Braga, the principal, presented to the senior class this afternoon, reviewed a number of these options, as well as provided them with the survey. And I know that Ms. Fisher has the same information for the Goodrich students as well. What we will try to do, obviously, is support the best solution for both schools and have a great event. What I didn't realize, there have been several Fitchburg High graduations at Wallace Civic Center, and the response that I've gotten from some of those members who participated was very positive. Not to say that that will be the choice, but I think we want to make it. The schools are looking to make decisions by Wednesday, Thursday this week, so that if it is at the Civic Center, you can nail that down and get the cost and some of the other logistical factors.
We can't wait any longer. We need to make a decision on where we're going to go.
What are the chances? I'm not sure what you're calling all the facilities at the high school, but you have an indoor track right there. I mean, it seems like that's
the field house.
Yep.
Okay, but that's indoor. You said something about something outdoor.
Like I said, so if it's nice outside, the second option allows us to have it outside in the soccer, softball area. But if it rains, we then would go inside to move the graduation inside in the field house.
Okay, I'm just, I try to save money as much as possible because I know we do need it, but okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and we've had many, typically, up until the pandemic, Goodrich graduation was always at the field house. And Fitchburg High's was in the field house, seemed like every other year, depending upon the weather, because the dates were the dates. There wasn't a makeup date. I think the Civic Center option was investigated as, hey, this is a once in probably 70-year opportunity to do the track, to do the turf, to do the lights at Crocker Field. It's a massive construction project. The concrete takes more than 30 days to cure for the track. So if there's any rain, it just adds a day. It adds a day to the curing. And then, so starting on May 15th was an unfortunate necessity to get the project done so that a fall athletic season can happen without problem. And that's going to be great because it'll be football, soccer, field hockey are all going to be able to play and practice there. I think the decision around the Civic Center, the decision around the soccer field, softball field in the front of Fitchburg High, again, we're going to try to have that nailed down on Wednesday, Thursday, and try to minimize, costs as well.
And so you do know, one of the questions when we found out about Crocker Field was the annual relay races. We will be having the annual relay races at Crocker Field. We need to move up the date a little bit, so it will be probably a few days earlier, where we'll get information out hopefully by the end of this week to everyone to let them know when the relays will be. But that will be our last kind of event at the current Crocker Field. Yep. Did you have a question, Lindsay?
I did. I think you kind of answered it. You just said historically, from time to time, we've done the graduations for both schools in the field house, right? So we don't have any concerns about fitting people in there?
It gets tight.
Space is
I mean,
sufficient?
Fitchburg High's is tight, just because it's the volume is larger in terms of the number of students graduating, the faculty size. But overall, that field house is sufficient. What I would say is parking is a real problem. It's a real challenge. And, again, I think we'll see about the Civic Center. I don't know if there's interest in it. I think the Dr. Rintoul, Dr. Braga, the Goodrich team are really going to try to, hear the voices of the kids. And if they really want to explore that, we know it's available. So we'll make that happen.
And I think one thing to realize is that, having it at the Civic Center helps with the parking piece because they have the parking available. Parking is tight at the high school, and we've actually used the Civic Center as the overflow lot in the past when we have had it at the high school, and we've shuttled people in. So, Debbie?
If both schools choose different places?
We're counting it all together as
Okay.
one group, all the
Okay.
seniors and what their vote is. So, okay. We'll let you know.
Can I just say something
Thank
real
you.
quick, sir? It's nothing that's negative. I just want to say something real quick.
Your report?
Unfortunately, I can't.
It's just
Yep.
the email that was sent out.
I would love, Sean, I'd love to have you speak, but that's not how the meeting is. run.
Procedurally,
I can't have
we
you-
can't accept that, but after the meeting,
After the
we can
meeting.
talk.
Yes, after the meeting, you can talk. When it's adjourned, yes.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, my last piece this evening is the FY25 budget reading, the first reading of the budget. So this evening, we're going to go over where we currently are. And then I'm going to begin, and Mr. Roach will chime in to go over some of the current numbers that we currently have regarding our budget. And then we'll come back on May 6th, which is the next school committee meeting, for the second and final budget, which then will be asked for you to approve, okay? So that's what we'll be doing this evening. So I'll begin by going back to our why and what the work that we do here in Fitchburg, our promise. All means all. Every day, no exceptions. Every student, every day, no exceptions. Our theory of action, otherwise known as our promise, serves as our North Star. We are confident we will fulfill our promise. So, if all students, families, and community partners collaboratively identify and remove barriers for personal growth and achievement, then every student will be ready to learn and access high-quality core instruction and social-emotional supports. That's our promise. That's what we believe in here in Fitchburg, okay? That being said, here's our 6 commitments that are outlined in our district strategic plan. Number 1 is curriculum that is accessible and reflective of all students. 2, a district-wide tiered system of academic and social-emotional support. 3, staff development and a diverse recruitment plan. Number 4, strategic and effective use of all resources. Number 5, a sense of welcoming and belonging with students, parents, staff, and all members of the community. And number 6, community and stakeholder engagement. Those are our really core commitments to our work. And as we have developed our budget this year, we have kept those 6 in mind to make sure we are meeting those commitments, to make sure we do the best for our students. So this budget is a collective effort from not only myself or Mr. Roach, but all the members of the Fitchburg Public School Administration. The budget process began December, January. Mr. Roach went around and met with all the principals in the district and directors and outlined our budget process for the year. And then what we did was we then invited all our principals and administrators to a one-on-one meeting with myself in addition to our cabinet to talk about the needs of their schools and their departments. And then we did our best to keep those needs in mind as we developed the budget. So again, this is not my budget, this is the district's budget, and it took a lot of people to develop this. And I just want to reflect the work of Mr. Roach. Without Mr. Roach, he's my right-hand man here. He's the money man. He's done a lot of work around this budget. So I really appreciate you, Mr. Roach, and all the work you've done
Wish
to make it happen.
had more.
I wish we had more money, yeah, as you'll see soon.
I love the logos.
Yeah, I really like this slide.
Yeah, this is
It's
great.
a great slide. So where are we here? So you've seen some of these slides before, and I know it's repetitive, but I think it's important to make sure everyone understands where we're at. So as you know, the ESSER funds, which was the pandemic relief, that runs out. After this year, there is no more ESSER funds. So that being said, as we said before, a lot of the curriculum work that we've done, a lot of the capital improvements that we've done or are scheduled to do are all coming from this pot of money that we've received for the last 3 years. That money's gone. Year 4 of the Student Opportunity Act this year has provided us with additional funding. However, as we said before, lower inflation rates plus the decrease in enrollment, we are not seeing as much money as we've seen the last 2 years, which I'll get into in more detail in a second. We're scheduled and we are asked or charged by the state to spend $2.9 million in additional Chapter 70 funds that we get to improve outcomes for our most marginalized students, which are the ESL students, our special education students, our low-income students, and also our Hispanic students. That's the Student Opportunity Act that I talked to you about. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Our staffing ratios are pretty high right now throughout the district, but we have to take a look at those staffing ratios to make sure we are giving priorities to all areas. And we may need to look at that when we move forward in reducing positions or reducing funds because of the reduced in the amount of funding that we received this year, which I'll talk about second. And then, as you all know, we are in negotiations with all 7 of our units for contracts this year. We are in the midst of all those negotiations. I don't know what that's going to look like right now. I don't know what the outcome will be financially, but we are in the works of doing that right now. And then, as we talked about capital improvements, we are hoping to get those scheduled as soon as hopefully this summer. If not, we may need to come back and look for next steps around that, but we hope to have those projects, all those HVAC and ESSER fund projects scheduled and started this summer. Okay? So that's kind of where we are at this point. A quick background where we're at this year around net school spending. So net school spending is the amount of money that we are asked to spend for our public schools. Okay, we have a number. That money is made up of 2 large funding sources, Chapter 70, which we get from the state, in addition to local contributions, what the city pays us. to run our public schools, okay? So that being said, there are some questions we still have around costs, those indirect costs around retirements, around insurance, around charter school assessments, which Mr. Roach will come and talk about in a little bit. But those are the areas we still don't have a good handle on as we move forward with the budget. So we still have some outstanding questions that we actually got some answered actually an hour before this meeting, which we'll talk about today. But those are some still unknowns around the budget, okay? In this graph, did you take that other slide out?
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Roach?
think there's-
It was repetitive, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, here's a quick example of the increase in funding since 2021. So as you can see, in 2021, our budget for our school system was about $77 million. As you can see, because of the increase in Chapter 70, because of SOA, we are now at an operating budget for next school year at $101 million. Okay? And this breaks that down a little bit in more detail. The darker maroon color is the Chapter 70 funding that we receive from the state, in addition to the pink, which is the local contribution, which the city contributes to our entire budget for the school system. So like we said, inflation has been a large factor. Because of that, our funding has changed. So last year and the year before, in 23 and 24, we received about $7.8 million in additional funding. We thought, Jeremy and I thought, moving into this year, we would get the same amount. It didn't happen. We only received $4.3 million. Talked about this before. That has been a big change for us moving into next year. We weren't expecting that, so we need to adjust. As I said before, out of that $4.3 million, we have to spend $2.9 million on the Student Opportunity Act, improving the outcomes for those student subgroups that I talked about earlier. We submitted our SOA on April 1st, and I'm happy to say I got news last week that they accepted it. We don't have to make any changes. Woo. So we got an A+ on our paper, everyone. So that being said, they accepted our plan. And remember, our plan is around these three areas: diverse approaches to meaningful family engagement, collaborative teaching models, and support for effective team practices. So we have to use $2.9 million of the increase towards these three initiatives to improve outcomes for our students. All right? And I think I'm handing it over to you now, Mr. Roach, correct?
Yeah, so this shows, like Mr. Thompson is describing, you know, I think one of the challenges we're seeing is what we're hearing across the state. Every community, when the governor's budget was released on January 26th, it was like an echo of a cry of what happened. Where is the additional Chapter 70 that we've been seeing for the first 3 years of the new law that established higher rates, especially for communities like ourselves? So this, I think, illustrates what I mean by that. So of our $101 million, 31% of our budget is really generated by the fact that we have a very high low-income percentage of our students. It's in Group 11 of 12, and every community in the state is categorized as Group 1, 2, 3, right up through 12, 12 being 80% or higher of your population is low income. Group 1 would be 0 to 5%. So we're in Group 11, that means 70 to 79%, and we're at 78.2. So a big chunk, like more than 30 million of the 100 million that we receive, or combined receive with the city's contribution, is really due to that. And again, there's needs that are required. So there are things that we need to try to do for our kids and the teachers who are working with them in the schools. And again, the significant reduction is it's posing a challenge for everybody. You will see that the per pupil expenditure has increased, and that is a good thing. So it's now at $17,964 per student. And that, again, is a contributing factor to how that $101 million is categorized. This is really brand new information as of like 5 o'clock today. We did receive the indirect costs report from the city, or not report, the actual charges from the city. What that means is essentially the items that don't count towards what goes on in the schools. It's retirement contributions, it's insurance, it's transportation, it's some of those items that you think to yourself, oh, that doesn't seem like a lot. But when you look at it, it actually adds up to $25.8 million of the $101 million. So it just comes right off the top. The city pays for that. So that the city ultimately, in what they receive, what their contribution is, 23.1, they go above really and pay for the indirect costs, those costs that, if you look here, in the next slide, we'll break it down. What I'll emphasize in the percentage change,
Go back.
if you don't mind, is just from this year to from last year to this year, big reduction. So Chapter 78 last year was 9.4% higher than the previous year. This year it's 4%. You know, when you look at something like that, those types of costs, and that's the biggest one that we received, the $77 million, when it goes from 9% to 4%, you know, you can just imagine the differences there. So we should be able to meet the net school spending requirement, which is going to be $75 million and a little bit higher this year. We might actually be $37,000 higher than what the state says has to be spent, and that's a good thing. As we proceed through the next slides, I'll walk you through a little bit of how do these costs affect the overall budget. So our direct spending school budget does include transportation, even though that doesn't count towards net school spending. But you can see transportation has skyrocketed across the state. We went out to bid for all three transportation tiers, so that'd be yellow buses, that's called just regular school day transportation, special ed in-district transportation, that's typically vans, and then special ed out-of-district transportation, that's typically vans as well, and that'd be for students who have an IEP that is not being serviced in the school system and they're being educated in a school outside of Fitchburg schools.
Can I just
please
say one thing? I was wrong. When I said our 25% of our special education numbers didn't include out-of-district, it does include out-of-district. That's my fault.
And we have about 100,
give you wrong information.
160 that of the 5,003, because they're included in that amount, about 5,350 students, about 160 would be out of district. So you can see school transportation is a huge increase, $1.1 million higher than the previous year, and then that contributes to that indirect cost of $25,853,256, which is a $2 million increase from the previous year. So the costs keep going up. If you go to the next slide, you're going to see another eye-watering increase as well, which is insurance. I think one benefit our faculty and staff do have is they have a great insurance option. But it does come with a significant cost and to the city, and that's $10 million, almost $200,000, which is $1.6 million higher than the previous year. So this affects all, municipal employees as well, but the school is the largest employer of staff, and again, the biggest increase would be for us. So you can see where some of those costs, the retirement is what it is, but that insurance one is a really significant driving factor in that amount that comes off the $101 million that we are told we have to meet in terms of the overall foundation budget. You can go to the next slide. Again, as we look at some of the other costs, health insurance for retirees did not increase significantly, but the other sort of clump or core contributing factors around costs that come to the city, that come off that 101, are school choice tuition, which was not significant increase. Charter school tuition, which actually is scheduled to go down. Now, enrollments can change. More kids can go or fewer kids can go, and those numbers can vary. But then, with fewer students in the charter schools, then the charter school reimbursement that the state gives back to the communities decreases as well. So there's not much of a change there, 19,000 overall, but it's still a large number as you get to that 25,853,000. We can go to the next slide. Okay, we had reviewed this at the last, I think, April 1st school committee meeting, and it's a lot of information. We're going to dig into it at the resource subcommittee meeting on Thursday a little bit more. But again, this just illustrates what Superintendent Thompson talked about, a factor that in typically 66% of the fiscal school years, you at least know what the costs are for staffing because you have contract in place. We don't know yet because we're still negotiating. And we're negotiating with quite a few of the units. Sometimes they're in different years. Ours just happen to be all in this coming year into FY25 through 27. So that's just an unknown. At this point, we don't know, so we'll make some best guesstimates. At least we do now know what the indirect costs were. We estimated that it was going to be $25,800,000, and it actually was just about that. It was a little bit higher. We can move to the next slide. So our next steps are resource subcommittee on Thursday. We will go line by line through the operating budget. We'll take a look at some comparisons from this year to next year and try to find some ways that we can reduce some lines. The following week, we do have building needs and resource on the 30th. We'll continue that work. You'll have a budget book in hand next week, so about 5 to 7 days prior to the May 6th school committee meeting. And then, ultimately we are going to propose reductions, but we want to minimize impact to classroom instruction, learning, safety, and support. I mean, that's the goal when we have to make reductions, is really to minimize the impact in those critical areas. But we are going to have to do it. So that's where we are as of April 22nd. Again, progress with the city chargeback costs. We know those now, and now we can move forward really with, again, we will have to do some speculating with respect to, the contracts not being settled as of May 6th, but at least, I don't think, so at least we'll be able to have some options in place.
What day do we have to vote on the budget again?
It's scheduled for May 6th, so actually our next school committee meeting. There's some benefit to doing it early that way. Typically, towns vote their budgets on that first Monday, Tuesday of May, and once it's established, the hiring process, so retirees, people who leave, it can be finalized in terms of job offers for potential new employees. Again, I'm hearing across the state there's a lot of communities that are struggling. They're going to 2.5 override votes. They're doing different things like that to increase the amount of net school spending for their town or city. For us, I think it's just going to be a matter of looking at our best options that we can produce for that May 6th vote, and again, we'll still have a few unknowns in terms of those contracts, but at least we'll have an idea of here's what those costs would be at various percentage increases and that kind of thing, like that previous slide showed.
Other questions?
Just on the superintendent's report, something that came up earlier tonight. about yearbooks, middle school.
Yeah.
Would you get back to me on that?
Yeah, I'm curious because I thought we used to do.
We did them, always
yeah,
did them.
and I wonder if something that was during the pandemic that stopped. But
I know Long Joe brought
Just
them
to
back.
note, Longs Joe is doing middle yearbooks.
Long Joe is.
Yep.
I know that.
And they did one last year, Long Joe.
Did you find out?
I don't know about Memorial.
Yeah, yeah. I thought Memorial did one too. So it's on my. Yeah. Well, I know Longs Joe. I have someone in the audience from Longs
haven't
Joe in the back that's saying that they are doing a yearbook.
Yeah. That's good.
Still a crappy little thin thing that they call in the yearbook?
All the pictures and all the clubs and all that stuff, they were about 60 pages. They were about 60 pages last year.
I should bring mine to show what I got.
All right. My last piece for the superintendent's report is some grants that we'd like to get approval to submit, in addition to a grant that we need to get approval to accept. The first grant is from the 1-9 Foundation. It actually should be 1-8 Foundation, not 1-9. Someone had a typo there. 1-8 Foundation, and that's for the Open Syed Continuation Grant. It's an unknown amount at this point, but this grant will be used to actually send our middle school teachers to continue to get training from the Open Syed curriculum that we're using that you heard Jessica talk about earlier. So it's just a continuation. They help us train the teachers to get the knowledge around the curriculum. So we don't know the amount yet, but there's no requirements for us. We just apply, we get the amount, and we send our teachers there for the professional development. And then the last one is from the United Way for after school and out of school time in the amount of $50,000. And that will actually help us fund some supplemental summer program opportunities for our students. So we like permission to submit those two grants. And then we also need permission to accept the Title III Part A Immigrant Children and Youth Grant. This was directly from the Mass Department of Education. This is because we have English language learners in our community. We are entitled to this grant. It's for $33,864,000, and this will provide supplemental resources to local school districts to provide enhanced instructional opportunities for immigrant children and youth. And there's no district requirements around that. Mayor, back to you.
All right, thank you, Superintendent Thompson. Okay, so we have the action items as noted in the superintendent's report before us.
I'd like to make a motion to bundle action items 24-378 through 24-381.
Second motion.
We have a motion and second to bundle 24-378 through 24-381 and take them all together.
I'm sorry, mate.
Any comments on the motion?
I actually have a brief question on number 24-378. I didn't hear us speak about that today, and I don't know if I had missed something previously.
Oh, yeah, I can speak to that.
The motion before us is whether or not we want to discuss them all together or separately. We could entertain a motion to, accept the bundle minus 24-378, take that separately. If the
I have no problems bundling. I just want to know what it was so I could know what I'm voting on.
Okay, we'll discuss that in the next motion. Okay. So the motion before us is to bundle.
That's fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, now the matter is before us. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
We have a motion first and then discussion.
Make a motion to accept the bundle.
Second. Okay, make a motion to accept the bundle. Any comments or questions on the motion?
Okay, comments. Question is just if I could get some clarification around 24-378, please.
Yeah, so we are about 2 days away from a public bidding project to enhance and update the surveillance and security systems at at our schools, with the exception of the new Crocker Elementary School construction project. So the two high schools, the two middle schools, and even the current Crocker Elementary School, as well as South Street Early Learning Center. In that project, the particular access control and video management system will be different than what's proposed for the new Crocker Elementary School. So the request is to make sure that the new Crocker Elementary School has the same system that the other 7 schools have. And so the way that the Mass School Building Authority requires it is you can ask them, and they typically will approve that type of request, because they don't want two completely different systems, especially as you talk about the door access controls, the camera systems that you have that are surveilling the outside and the interior of the buildings, the panic button systems, the alarms that might be, affixed to exterior doors, so such that a door opens, the school personnel will know that it's propped open or something like that. The School Building Authority just says that in order to make that request, your local governing body has to take it up and decide to approve that you submit to them. They still decide. My guess is they will, because they had approved one prior about 2 years ago when the project was just getting started. So it's really so that the new Crocker will have the same video management and access control system as the other 7 buildings in the school system, which should be installed this summer.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and second to accept the bundle. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that is unanimous.
Motion for adjournment.
We have a motion for adjournment.
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'll take that as unanimous. Thank you. We are adjourned.